Welcome to the final 2 units of our course in Health Data Science. These last 2 units of the course go together, so we wanted to give you this brief introduction so that you can see for units 7 and 8 how the work you're going to do is going to build from one to the next and all come together in a final project. The last 2 units of the course build on each other. So for these units, we're going to be moving from the realm of clinical data into organizational performance data. There are many requirements for hospitals and organizations to monitor, manage, reporting of performance measures. So this is the kind of data that we'll be getting into in these final 2 weeks. Hospitals are required to report data for many different things, such as infections, readmissions, and patient satisfaction. And we'll be taking a look at all of these kinds of data. Throughout the course, we've taken you through a number of different data analysis activities. When students initially think of data analysis, they envision a spreadsheet or database and how they're going to use some kind of a tool like Excel or Python to analyze the data. And this does happen, but it's only one aspect of analyzing data, as you've probably come to understand by this point. In Unit 2, we asked you to clean and prepare a data set, and this is a preliminary step, ensuring that the data is ready to go. And in Units 7 and 8, what we'll do is we'll ask you to format the output into easy-to-consume data visualizations. Then, as a final step in Unit 8, you'll prepare a PowerPoint presentation that contains your visualizations and provides your interpretation of the data. Interpreting the data is a key step in making the data actionable, which is what we're really trying to do here. So first, let's talk a little bit about Unit 7. In Unit 7, you will examine data that's actually reported by hospitals on infection rates, readmission rates, emergency room metrics, and patient satisfaction. We've provided 5 spreadsheets for you to choose one. It's data from real hospitals in the states of Illinois, California, Iowa, Texas, or New York. You pick one that you're going to work with for Unit 7. These spreadsheets have the raw data that we're asking you to present in tables and charts. So this will require you to format the data and present it in a meaningful way. Why are we asking you to work with this performance data? This data is used by leadership to make decisions on which projects they will prioritize. So it will help to become familiar with this basic organizational performance measures that all hospitals use. In each of the data sets, you'll find the raw data that we pulled. You will then work with that. It's a combination of different types of hospitals, small community hospitals, larger teaching hospitals, rural, urban hospitals, just to give you an idea of what you might see on data from these different types of hospitals. You'll create 3 tables. For tables 1 and 2, we've already pulled the data, it's in the spreadsheets, and then you'll format it so that it's presentable. What you're looking at on the slide here is an example of what Table 1 can look like. So there are several hospitals. You see that there are different kinds of benchmarks that you can use. We'll be asking you to select a benchmark. Some people have used more than one benchmark. That's fine as long as you make sure that it's easy for us to see which benchmark you're comparing against as you format and shade the rest of the data. So you'll choose a format, you'll choose a benchmark, and then also we will want to see, is the data higher or lower than the benchmark? It's important to realize that in some cases, it's better to be a low number. Readmissions, we want to see low numbers there. So as you're interpreting the data, think about that. In some cases, it's better to have a higher number. For patient satisfaction, we want to have higher numbers. So for all these tables that you will prepare in Unit 7, you will format, title your tables, include a benchmark, and include a legend so that we can see how the shading and colors are defined, how you decided to define them. So for Table 3, one additional step is that you will download the data yourself. So we don't give you the raw data for Table 3. You will pull it directly from whynotthebest.org. And we've got the YouTube videos that you need so they walk you through the steps on how to download the data and create your table. From there, you will do exactly the same thing that you did for Table 1 and 2. So you'll format it and interpret the data exactly in the same way. So once you have your 3 tables, the last thing for Unit 7 is for you to select one of the hospitals that is in your data set, one of them, and do a deeper dive and research them a little bit further. We want you to think about what leadership in that hospital would do with this data to understand their organizational performance. They want to know if there are some areas that need improvement. In some cases, it costs hospitals money if they do poorly on these measures, so they're incentivized to do well. Research this hospital by going to their website, see what they post out there. What kind of an organization are they? What are their strategic priorities? What areas and programs do they focus on and advertise on their website? You may also be able to dig around and find an annual report or press releases that they publish talking about the key priorities for their organization and big new projects that they're working on. So ultimately, their data should reflect their attention to these areas. That's what we would expect to see. And then we would start seeing, if they're working on these areas, we would expect to see their data showing high performance. So to conclude your research, you will write a brief introduction on this one hospital, and then finally a short summary of your conclusions on how the data that you have put into your 3 tables aligns with the organizational strategic direction. So that is your Unit 7. So let's move on and talk a little bit about the assignment for Unit 8. In Unit 8, you will build on what you did in Unit 7, and you'll create 2 deliverables, a scorecard and a final presentation in PowerPoint for an audience of healthcare executives. The PowerPoint will include your tables from Unit 7, so those can be used as they are and added to your PowerPoint. Then we are going to give you a small data set to create a new chart and graph. The scenario for this new data set is that the CNO of a health system has collected some data across several hospitals and clinics, and they're asking you to analyze this data, but you get no further guidance. Look at the data elements that are in your data set and decide what is important. Decide what you can present out of that data that is of some value. This may seem a little bit strange, but this is a scenario that really does come up. And we're simulating this situation. Someone has a pet project and some data that they want analyzed. And you'll see that many questions will arise as you begin to look at the data. There's more data that you wish you had. So this is not an optimal situation for analyzing data, but it's a real situation. How we're faced with these kinds of unexpected requests sometimes, and we have to find a way to respond. So you'll decide how to analyze the data and create a table and chart with this CNO data. So this will also be in your PowerPoint. So let's talk for a minute about the scorecard deliverable. On this slide, I am showing an example of a scorecard, and you'll find that in Blackboard, so you can take a look at that there too. What we're looking for with the scorecard is a prototype. We are not looking for values to be added to the scorecard. So we want to see the layout. a prototype of a one-page scorecard that could be used to track the important metrics. Students often ask if they need to have the data from tables in Unit 7 showing up in the scorecard. No, we are not looking for you to add any data to the scorecard. So a real-life example of why this is important and why we're asking you to create a scorecard is on a recent analytics project Dr. Krive and I worked on. We heard the CIO of the organization state that she wants providers to be more engaged with the data. They were using a very simple scorecard with one metric on it: colorectal cancer screening. Yes or no, what percent got done, given to each provider every month. The goal they were working on was to raise screening rates to at least 40%. The simple reporting of one metric was not having an impact to raise the rates, and she wanted to see what more could be done to get the attention of the providers using the data. So we explored some additional interim steps in the process for getting compliance with screening that they could report metrics on that could be added to the scorecard. Was the order placed? Was a referral made? Did the patient refuse the appointment? Starts to get at some of the reasons for why the rates may not be meeting their target, their benchmark. So all of these provide clues where patients were dropping out, where somebody could intervene. And these are reasonable metrics that can be reported. This is a good example of how the scorecard can be used to communicate in an organization and to get people to engage with the data, improve data literacy in the organization. Scorecards allow organizations to set goals, track progress over time, and see their performance on key measures. The detailed instructions for what we want to see in your prototype scorecard are in Blackboard. And so take a look at those and see what you need to include in your scorecard. Finally, you'll prepare your final PowerPoint presentation that includes all of this data and goes on to provide your interpretation of the data to executives. For your interpretation, you'll analyze all the week 7 and week 8 data to compare, draw conclusions, and tell the story of what the implications are for the hospital. You'll provide insights. In the PowerPoint, you're addressing the one hospital that you did your additional research on. So you should have some idea of what type of organization they are and what their priorities are. You're going to be providing your conclusions on the data and what kinds of insights you can provide, recommendations you can provide for them in deciding what projects do they need to work on in the next year. You might want to refer back to the document we provided in the Unit 1 readings about scientific communication and reporting versus interpreting findings. There's a difference between reporting findings and interpreting them. And we want to see you go beyond reporting findings and move into your conclusions, your recommendations, your interpretations, and give the organization some insights. So Unit 8 pulls together a lot of the concepts that we've been talking about and that you've learned along the way in this course, and it gives the full picture of what an end product of data analysis looks like. We do have a limited discussion for week 7 and 8, so this is to give you a chance to see the work of others in your group, and we want 2 substantive comments. This is for you to compare what you did with what others did and see how they approached the assignments. As always, we're available for any of your questions that you have about the assignments. Enjoy the exercises we have for these final 2 weeks and preparing your final presentation and focusing on organizational performance data.